Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the March Mobility and Movement Challenge. For the next 31 days or so, I'm going to be programming a couple extra mobility moves focusing on different areas of the body just to get us thinking a little bit more about becoming a little bit more mobile, but also as a way to just introduce a few new moves that perhaps we don't usually do during class, just so you guys can start building up a portfolio of different mobility things just to try out, so we don't always do the standard same pigeon stretch or like pretzel or whatever. So hopefully this will kind of bring some new light to your way of thinking of mobility. So now, with all of these different mobility moves, ideally you don't just want to do them only once for that one day and then just kind of move on with your life. Like, definitely pick these up and do them often. You know, you're not really going to become a lot more mobile unless you kind of repeat and practice and kind of do things more than once, so that you actually build up that mobility over time. You know, this kind of stuff does take a lot of patience, a lot of time, a lot of practice to get a lot more flexible and to become a lot more mobile in different areas. So, with that being said, the first area that I want to talk about today is ankle mobility. Okay, so shins, ankles, calves. Ankles, I think we tend to forget about kind of these smaller joints. We always focus on like the shoulders and like the hips and the lower back and hamstrings and all these big moneymaker muscles. But really, when it comes down to it, our ankle mobility can actually play a really big role in our ability to have proper positioning in the bottom of a squat, when doing something like box jumps where there's a lot of foot action, running at the catch position at the top of a rower. So let's just talk a little bit about ankle mobility today and some things that you can do to test to see whether or not you have really good range of motion within your ankles, and then just a few things that you can do at home or before or after a workout just to get a little bit more range of motion. So really quick, let's just talk about flexion here really quickly. So the ankle, you can flex it two different kinds of ways: dorsiflexion, which is pulling the toes towards, and then plantar flexion, which is pointing the toes away. And now what happens is, as you flex, the muscles on top of your shin here, so if I'm pointing my toes down this way, the muscles on top of here will lengthen as the muscles on my calves are actually getting shorter. And when I flex this way, these muscles on top are getting shorter, these muscles down here are actually getting longer. And like what happens is your muscle fibers kind of slide around, they kind of come apart, or they get pushed together depending on how your range of motion is. Now, depending on what kind of shoes you wear every day, if you're used to walking around barefoot around your house, or if you're always in shoes, if you wear lots of thick heels all the time, or you always wear minimal shoes, your foot will actually have its natural position that it just kind of settles in after a while, depending on, again, like the height of your shoe or like what position your foot is always in, whether you're walking on level ground. So now, depending on that kind of neutral position that your ankle is in, your range of motion may be different than someone else. So for example, if your foot kind of just naturally likes to point downwards because you always like to wear heeled shoes, then your ability to flex downward versus upwards is going to be different than someone whose normal foot position may be just slightly a little bit more flexed, or a 90-degree angle, and then they have more ability to perhaps dorsiflex this way, versus you. So now some things you can do is obviously vary your types of shoes and type of footwear that you wear. Also vary the surface of the ground that you're always kind of walking around, just to kind of build up that ankle strength and also that range of motion. But let's say you can't, and you're kind of wanting some ways to stretch out your calf muscle just a little bit more so that you're able to get a little bit more dorsiflexion, or your shin muscles. We'll talk about that today. So one way that you can test to see how good your range of motion is in your ankles is to actually find a wall, and you're going to place your toes about 5 inches away from the wall, so about 5 inches or so. I'm going to play the short card because I have really short legs, so I don't know if I can do this, but we'll see. My 5 inches is probably more like 4.5. So what you're going to do is just kind of start kneeling, and you're going to start by pressing your knee towards the wall, and you want to keep this foot flat on the ground. You want to make sure that this ankle doesn't come off the ground. So you're going to try to press your knee towards the wall as best as you can. Once that ankle lifts up, you're basically done. That's as far as you can go. And see if you can get your knee to actually touch the wall. And if you can do this, you probably have pretty good ankle mobility. If not, then you definitely have some room to improve. So they say like if you can push your knee at least like 5 inches, or like, you know, with your toes 5 inches away from the wall, if you can get your knee 5 inches past that. And usually one foot will be a little bit better than the other. Like let me try with my left foot here. Yeah, they're pretty similar. So now we're going to talk about a couple ways that you can help to kind of improve that ankle range of motion, and you can retest again against the wall. So all you're going to need today is just a towel or some kind of hoodie or something that you can kind of wad up really tightly. Phone book is really good because we don't really use those anymore except for mobility things, you know. So let's get started here. So with this towel, so you're just going to roll it up into a nice little wad, place it down, and I'm going to start by placing my ball of my foot on top of the towel so my foot is angled upward and then my heel is still going to be grounded. Okay, so I'm going to start by working on my right foot. Now what I want to do is take my left foot and I want to step forward about a foot in front. Okay, so my back heel is still on the ground. And now what I'm going to do, keeping my hips nice and squared, is I'm going to bend the knee, keep that heel on the ground, and then straighten out. And really think about when, as you bend the knee, keep that heel grounded and really try to press down as far as you can and straighten out. So you can do this about 20 times on each leg. And hopefully after a while you'll feel a little bit more mobility in the ankles. Try to push down just a little bit deeper with each one. Now after you do 20 on each side, something that you can also do, so right now my foot, my toes are pointing straight forward, hips are straight forward, and everything's kind of in one line. So something that you can also do as well is actually take your foot and turn it about 45 degrees out to the side. Okay, so I'm going to turn it outwards to the right and step forward and do basically the same thing. But this time now my foot's angled outwards and I'm still keeping my hips facing forward. Okay, so I'm not just going to turn my hips out, keep it facing forward. And I'm going to now try to bring my knees forward and bend forward and back. And now you'll end up getting kind of more the inside of the ankle versus kind of straight in front. Okay, now you can always so you can do that for 20 times and then turn your foot to the inside. So first we had forward, 45 degrees out to the right, now 45 degrees to the left. Heel is still on the ground, ball of foot's on the towel. You might need to readjust the towel if it keeps sliding. Step in front about a foot or so, and now try to bend your knee, keep that heel on the ground, and straighten. And you're going to get just a little bit different flavor with this one. Now you're going to get a little bit more mobility on the outside. So it's like this nice kind of like rainbow effect that you're getting. So you're getting like all different sides of the ankles. So you can also do that with the other foot as well. So 20 going forward, 20 toes turned out to the left, and then 20 toes turned into the right. And again, with each one, really work on making sure that heel stays on the ground and that you're really trying to push that knee down as far as it can go to really get that mobility open in your ankle right there. So that's one thing you can try. Now the next thing is kind of very similar, is with your foot facing forward on the towel. Now what you're going to do is actually step your foot a little bit further, like you're about to go into like this lunge position. So my heel is still on the ground, okay? I want to make sure that my heel still stays down here, ball of foot's on the towel, stepping forward more into a lunge position. And now I'm going to actually keep this leg straight as I try to bend the front leg into a lunge and then back, okay? So this is a little bit more of a calf stretch. You're going to feel a little bit more up here. But again, remember, in order to get that good flexion, the muscles all the way up here too in our calves also have to be kind of nice and mobile and have that ability to stretch as well, because that's going to limit our ankle range of motion. So again, stepping out, I'm about like, a couple feet away, coming into a lunge here, heel on the ground, and just kind of bending the front knee, feeling that nice good stretch right through my calf, and then straightening out and releasing. So you can do this about 20 times. If you want to try the rainbow effect, again, foot out to the side, lunging, foot to the inside, lunging one more time, and then switch feet. Again, this is a really good way to get just kind of a different area of the lower leg. So the next thing you can do also for a little bit of strengthening is actually to come down to a squat. So bring your feet about, hip distance apart or so. I like to go a little bit narrower on this one than your typical squat. So usually about hip distance versus like shoulder distance. Now you want to come down, make sure that your arms are inside the knees and helping to drive the knees out. And what you're going to do is come up on your toes, tippy toes, and then try to come down and try to bring your heels as close to the ground as you can. Now for this one, you don't have to worry about, being in that really good upright position. We're working on ankle mobility here. So if you need to stay over just a little bit more to stay balanced, again, what we're focusing on is just good ankle strength, as well as coming from a flexed position to a more closed position here with the ankle. So this is something you can do about 20 times. It's really good for strengthening the calves, the ankles around. If you want just a little bit extra, you can take your handy dandy towel. Try it 1 foot at a time. See the difference. Come up on the toes and then come back down to the ground. This one's feeling a lot more work, obviously, than the other one because it's up on a towel. And again, just trying to get those ankles as close to the ground as you can. Another variation on calf stretches that you can do as well is if you have some wall space, you can angle your foot up against the wall. Obviously, the higher the angle is, or the more vertical my foot is, the harder it's going to be. And basically, you want to take your entire weight, so not just your knee, but your hips, upper body, torso, and everything, and kind of push it towards the wall. And do this and kind of pulse about 20 or 30 times. And that's going to help to get a little bit more flexion in the foot. So this is one variation. You can also try just moving the knee, which is going to get, I think, just a little bit more lower down in the calf. So again, moving the whole body, it's going to get a little bit up around the leg, and then moving just the knee will help to get just a little bit lower. So try those couple different variations, moving the entire body towards the wall, and then moving just the knee and bending the knee back and forth. And that will help. You can switch sides. Whole body towards the wall, so hips, everything moving all in like kind of one motion, and then knee bending towards the wall. All right, last thing I want to show you guys is how to stretch out now the front of the shins if you don't have one of those runner stick thingies, a stretch that you can do. So you may need a towel for this, but what you're going to do is just sit on your heels, just basically kind of sit back if you can, and you're going to take one hand, wrap it around the knee. You may need to kind of support and lean back with the other hand here. And basically, while keeping the other knee on the ground, you're going to pull this knee off the ground and press the top of your foot into the ground. Now, what you want to press is the creases of your 4 little toes, okay? So it's this outer area of the foot right on top of these creases that you want to push down. You don't want to press down on top of the big toe, because that's going to actually cramp up your foot. You want to make sure that as you're pressing down on the top of your foot that you're able to wiggle your big toe around, because otherwise your foot's going to cramp up. It's not going to feel very good. So make sure that you're able to wiggle your toes. So again, you're going to pull this knee up, press the top of that foot, the top of those 4 creases of those little toes right into the ground. And this is a really good kind of static hold, or you can kind of even pulse and do a little bit of a active stretch here as well. So again, most of the pressure is on the outside top of the foot. You should be able to wiggle your big toe and maybe even your smaller toes just a little bit as you're doing this. But you're going to feel a really good stretch right through the front of the shins, maybe even through a little bit of the ankles. If this hurts your foot, here's your towel. Just grab your towel, plop the top of your foot right on top of there, and just kind of settle back. And that should be a little bit more padded help for your foot. And again, switching sides. Top of the foot right on the towel, sitting on the toes, and then I'm going to take the left hand, start pulling the left knee up, and I'm going to lean back, keep this knee on the ground, and make sure that I'm pressing in the top of my foot against the floor as I'm lifting the knee up. Really good stretch right against the front of the shin. Okay. So I hope that you have a chance today to try out some of these mobility moves for about 10 minutes or so, and I will see you for the rest of March.